Alright, here we go. Starbucks definitely not sponsoring me to do this video. It's just that I had like a couple of minutes before I sort of hop on to my next destination. So I'll quickly get into what I want to talk about today. And interestingly, this is something that I've thought of, including in as a topic in Bali for so long. And it's around travel and the sort of importance that it has in my life, and also in general about how amazing a thing it is, because almost everybody that like I'm inspired from, and I get into a conversation with about life, and just to learn something from them, and I ask them what's the single most thing that they sort of think has helped them develop as a human being in the journey, whatever. And for most people, or I would say for everybody, they've mentioned travel. And I thought, okay, why not? I'm in Morocco. I'm here for a festival. I'm actually bartending there, so that'll be pretty cool. And I just had the most amazing, beautiful half day in Marrakesh yesterday. And I was actually supposed to record an episode with the guy who I met yesterday. He was the owner of a shop, and he's actually a proper nomad from the Sahara, and they spend just 2-3 months in the city to sell jewelry and stuff. That's what their family business is about. So I was actually going to record an episode with him, but he couldn't make it. So I was like, I still got to deliver. Yeah. I think I started traveling vividly only once I sort of left India back in 2018. I remember I went on a solo trip for the first time in 2017 to see my friend in Singapore, and after that I moved to Paris, and like everything became so much more accessible in terms of destination, in terms of cost and all of that, because when you're in Europe it's very easy to travel around. And but like, although that's not the point of what I'm trying to say here, it's just that like just by traveling, just by putting myself in places that were not so familiar, meeting new people, very interesting people who have such different stories, I got to learn so much about life that I definitely wouldn't have if I were just sort of chilling at home doing the same things that I do every day. And this reminds me of a very funny incident that happened last week. So I was in Paris, and we were out for dinner, like all my friends. We were about 10, 12 of us. And a friend, Apurva, she was like, so Shreya, how long are you visiting us for this time? And she was just making a joke because I'm out and about so often. And I was like, I very timidly, I was like, okay, I'm here for a week. So she was like, oh, so you're here for long? And I was just like, what the fuck? But I totally get what she says, because I'm always on the road, and it doesn't really have to be like extravagant holidays or vacations of sorts. I just like traveling. Like it's a very big reason that I've sort of designed my life to be a certain way, that I'm recording this video here at Morocco. It's kind of quote unquote my work, and I get to do that while traveling. I get to do that while I'm meeting new people. So I mean, that definitely changes a lot in you. And I want to start narrating what happened yesterday. So I arrived in Marrakesh at about, like, I checked into where I was staying, the Airbnb, at about 5 p.m. And then I thought that, okay, I just have half a day, because today I leave for another place in the desert. And then I was like, okay, I'll look at the spice market, and I'll do this and I'll do that, and I'll maximize my time here. But what happened was that I went down, and I was just gonna, like, leave the Riyadh that I was staying at. And there was this lovely lady from San Francisco, and we ended up chatting. And she was like, "Can I join you?" I said, "Yes, for sure. Like, I'm solo, so by all means, I'd love to have company." And we were just strolling towards the souk, and there was this man who stopped us. His name is Aziz, and Aziz stopped us and he lured us into his shop. He started telling us all these lovely stories of the Sahara, and how, like, each piece of jewelry, he started telling us about the history. And I think we entered the shop at around 5:30, and we left at 10 o'clock at night. And the evening, it was like, we went to the shop, we're hearing these stories, we're getting offered tea, and apparently in Moroccan culture, you don't say no when somebody offers you tea, or, when somebody offers to host you or whatever. So you get to learn so much about somebody that you would normally never cross paths with. And in the end, like he even cooked their tagine and we had dinner together. So all in all, what I'm trying to say here is that, these I could have never planned this. When I reached Marrakesh, I was like, okay, I'll do this, maximize the fuck out of my half day here and all of that. It's a very famous Moroccan proverb that chances are much better than planned encounters, and that is such a lovely thing because that's exactly what has happened, not just this time but every time I'm traveling. And yes, it just helps me be a better person. It helps me sort of open my mind up, broaden my horizons. And whoever I've met who's like been a traveler, I'm not saying a tourist. There's a huge difference. So for me, traveling is really about experiencing a place's character, experiencing the culture, and all of that. And that cannot happen when you're staying in hotels and all of that. That can only happen when you're actually interacting with the locals. You're trying to make an effort, and you're actually sort of soaking in the the vibe of the place you're at. And for me, that is what travel is about. And I think it forms such a huge part of my character, of my the way I think, and everything else that it comes with. Like, and I also hear this a lot, and a lot of people, they're just like, oh yeah, you've got money and whatever else. I find that's such a bunch of crap, because that's not true. You don't really need a lot of money to travel, because I mean, this is totally off the topic, but I can give you a proper breakdown of how my travel or my trip would cost lesser than how much you probably spend on random stuff, on eating out and stuff like that. Although that's not the part of the conversation, but I would definitely like to address that, because no matter how much your means are, you can definitely fit in travel. And you can fit in even a hike into the mountains. That for me is like getting out of your regular zone and putting yourself out there, letting yourself experience nature, experience the world in a different way. And that is what travel does for me. And okay, so I've got like 10 minutes to wrap this up, so I'm going to make it quick. So traveling is one of those things which are so crucial to character development, that you can only have it through experience. There are certain things you need to experience for yourself, and no amount of literature, no amount of teaching or whatever else will be able to teach you these things that for me are very essential in anybody's journey. So the first thing would definitely be building confidence. Like, it helps so much when you are out in a place where you don't know anybody and you have to strike up a conversation, even at the supermarket or even at the train station. And it's even better when you don't speak the language, because that helps you sort of actually test how good you are at communication. So confidence is something that definitely I have been able to build through traveling so much over the past, I don't know, so many years. The second thing that comes to mind is networking. I can proudly say that thanks to all the traveling that I've done, I am in a position where I don't think there's any place that I would want to visit in the world where I already don't know somebody. And that could be somebody who I've directly met, or a friend of a friend of a friend. But you get the point, right? Like, I know people from parts of the world that I never even knew existed. So that's the kind of stuff that traveling does for you. I mean, I'm on my way to go to this place that I can't even pronounce. Like, it's some desert town where this festival is happening, and I'm sure that I'll meet people who are going to blow my mind with their stories and everything. So that is definitely a huge plus. The third thing is that it definitely broadens your horizons, because you start to see things from such a different perspective when you're not in your comfort space. We're used to looking at things the same way, we're used to doing things the same way. And honestly, for me, that's very boring. You can't, I don't like monotony in life. I like a little bit of or I would say a lot of adventure. Like, there a train missed here or a flight that got cancelled. I mean, that's a story that happens in itself without you trying. So when things like that happen, when like you trying to check into an Airbnb, but like your card won't work or something like that, at a hotel, I mean, so you get the point. So that kind of stuff only happens when you're seeing things that are not a part of your daily life. Like, just for example, you're in a country where people are far more liberal than you are. You see a couple that's the same sex who are holding hands, who are kissing in public. Depending on where you come from, you might at first feel a little uncomfortable. That also depends on how exposed you are to this idea. But when you see it as a part of normal culture around you, it definitely changes a little bit of something inside you. And for me, that is one step towards being a better person. The fourth thing that traveling does for me is something that I absolutely have to mention, which is budgeting. Okay, even if you're traveling at within your own country, and like I think a lot of people listening to this will be like, oh Shreya, but yeah, we don't live in Europe and we don't have the same accessibility as you. It does not matter, because when I'm in India, I go to the hills. I take a trek to the hills, because like I said, traveling is not about the luxury of it. I mean, if you're able to travel, that in itself is a luxury. You can do it for as little as 100 euros, 200 euros, which is like 10, 20,000 rupees, if that is your point of reference. Because I've done it, and that's how I know that it's possible. And you can you can see how far your money can take you. Because when I'm traveling, when I was a student, and even now, for example, I am always looking for homestays. I'm looking for people who can host me, because not only does that help me save money, it also helps me totally submerge into the culture. I mean, imagine what's better than, like being with somebody who's lived and, grown up in the same place that you're visiting as a tourist. It's a totally different experience. And like when you hang out with these people, you get to learn the local hacks, you get to save money, and they tell you where to shop, where not to shop, where you could get scammed, where you couldn't get scammed, kind of stuff. And just in general, even if you're not somebody who's out there interacting with people and all of that, when you're traveling, certainly, especially when you're young, there's a certain budget that you have in mind. So trying to maximize that, trying to get the most out of what you have, what is available to you, is definitely something that I've learned through traveling, learned through managing very, very, very tight expenses. But it's always been a very beautiful experience nonetheless, because obviously I never looked at, now when I look back, it's not about, oh, I didn't have enough money to blah blah blah, because on the contrary, I still made the most of what I had, and that definitely came through learning how to manage my finances. And although I could go on and on and on, in the interest of time, I want to wrap this up quickly. The last thing that I think traveling helps you, and it's also, I think, very important, that it helps you be a better person. And that is such a qualitative sentence, because you cannot measure compassion, you cannot measure kindness, you cannot measure the act of sharing, you cannot measure being nice to somebody. And like when we're in we might be the biggest assholes in our local environment, but when you're outside in a place where you don't really know anybody, even the meanest of people are nice. So I mean, like, just through traveling, I have become so much softer, so much kinder. The whole act of putting other people first and thinking about not just you, not just yourself, not just your friends, your family, and da da da, but like at a very meta level, it's also thinking about all of us as a community, as like as an entirety, that so to speak. So yeah, I mean, like, these are some benefits, some of the very many benefits that I have gotten through traveling. It's like I said, it's a huge part of who I am today. And if you're listening to this, I encourage you to like travel like a traveler. And by that I mean, just go into experiences, take a fucking backpack, put in a few clothes. It doesn't have to be like, and a very fancy trip or whatever, but you can just go to the town that is accessible to you where you haven't been before. For me, that counts as travel. And that is exactly the point that I'm trying to make. I'm sorry, my alarm went off. All right. So yeah, all in all, what I'm trying to say is that travel as much as you can, especially when you're young. See the world, let it charm you. Get blown away by all these experiences. Get blown away by all these lovely stories that you'll get to hear, and be safe always. Don't buy drugs from street vendors. And yeah, I mean, try to befriend people because they'll keep you safe. Try to make friends and just enjoy life. I mean, that's what we're all here for, isn't it? And thank you so much for listening once again. Starbucks is not sponsoring this. This is just the spot that I found to record. And I'll see you next week.